Hey everyone, it's Ryan here at the Smokin' Studios at the Rocky Mountain Cigar Show. Welcome back to another live Thursday night show. I've got somebody that I'm very excited to have on. It's somebody that I've been trying to have on, just schedules haven't matched up until I saw him again at Rocky Mountain Cigar Fest this year. And we exchanged a little bit more information and we finally put a time on the calendar. And today is the day. So this is going to be an absolutely fantastic show. Great guest, great conversation. But we've got to say a huge thank you to all the sponsors that make this show remotely possible, starting with BAMF Cigars, Kristoff Cigars, ROCF Cigars, Berger Cigars, Sagrado Cigars, New Air Humidors. See the discount promo code in the description below for 15% off your humidor. We've also got Micallef Cigars, pro family business, pro growth, and pro cigar rights. We've got Big Sky Cigars, Cornell and Diehl pipe tobacco, and La Aurora Cigars as well. And we cannot forget the big man, Abe Dababna himself over at Smokin'. Obviously, this is the Smokin' Studios at the Rocky Mountain Cigar Show. So thank you, Abe and team over there. And tonight we are going to be drinking the X in the Oak regular bourbon, as this is the drink sponsor of the show. We're blending it with that's another segment here. We're going to go ahead and bring Sean in. So let's go ahead and give him a warm welcome. How you doing, Sean?
I'm good, man. How you doing out there?
Doing well. Hey, so go ahead and let's kick it off. Go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us who you are, who you work for, what you do for them, and I'm going to go ahead and share the show. And if you're watching, please do me a favor as well as Sean and share the show as well. So, Sean, the floor is yours.
So I'm Sean Williams. I am ambassador and blender for Cohiba Cigars, Cohiba Cigars USA, obviously. Been in the cigar business now 17 years. Can't believe how time flies. I used to have hair, black hair, actually. I started my own brand almost 20 years ago now, 17, 18 years ago, and did that exclusively for just over a decade before being contacted by the good people at General Cigar and Scandinavian Tobacco Group to come over and be a part of the team that brings you these incredible cigars that we offer from Cohiba, and also have the opportunity to be the person that gets to actually go out into the marketplace and enjoy the cigars with cigar lovers coast to coast, and just get to live this crazy dream of mine. You know what I mean?
And you get to come on and do shows constantly, and you get to go and do some cool stuff, man. You were just telling me how there was an event you were supposed to go to, a polo tournament. Mm-hmm. I have no idea how polo is played. I know it's played on a horse with a croquet bat, for very crude explanation. But outside of that, I don't know, but I would have a hell of a time going.
Oh, it is. You know what's the most amazing thing about polo that I didn't know or appreciate until I started going to the matches is how exhausting it is for the horses. I mean, you'd have one competitor who may have 5 horses that he would ride throughout the match because it's so taxing on the horses that they switch the horses out a lot. And that's something that I found very interesting. And it's not very easy for the horses as well. So it looks sort of fancy and cool and whatever, but there's a lot of moving parts to it, a lot of athleticism, both for the jockeys and for the horses. And I'm not sure they actually call them jockeys, but you know.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just the ability to throw your weight in sync with the horse. And I don't think most people realize. I taught how to ride horses at a Christian camp up in Wisconsin. Don't get me wrong. I'm no pro. I'm no cowboy. You know, I've had my fair share of mess ups, but I've done some fun stuff, a little bit of barrels and a little bit of jumping. And I'll tell you, it really is about keeping your weight almost exactly over that horse. And and the leg and core strength it takes to do that, it's got to be absolutely insane. So, but yeah, well, let's get into here a little bit. So you started with Cohiba in 2017.
Yes.
And we had a little bit of the discussion pre-show, but let's walk through a little bit, just elevator explanation of kind of how that happened, and then what brought you in to say yes.
Well, as I said, I ran my brand exclusively for just over 10 years, and a good friend of mine, we had met just on the road, just doing what we do. Walking in and out of shops years ago, and that was Rick Rodriguez, who at the time was he was in my role for CAO, blender and ambassador for CAO. And discussion started internally within STG about maybe sort of just personalizing or just forging not a new direction, but just kind of expanding maybe the audience and the voice for Cohiba. And they wanted a person to sort of be at the forefront of that, to be a part of the innovation and a part of the in market activation and touching the customers and just helping bring the brand to life. And Rick, amongst other amongst other people, suggested that they reach out to me, and Rick was actually tasked with that mission. So he shot me a phone call late 2016. It's kind of see what I had going on at the time and see if I'd be interested in being this guy for Cohiba, which I obviously was. But we had some discussions around my cigar line at the time. So had a few discussions back and forth over a few months and a couple of meetings here and there. And in April of 2017 is when I signed the contract and started officially in May of 2017.
Okay. And Bruce, yes, you 100% jumped me on this one because I was about to do a lead in. Now that you work for Cohiba and you're on the show, we're both smoking Cohibas. What are you smoking tonight? I will let Sean.
The 2020 release of the Weller by Cohiba cigar. And I actually don't have any Weller bourbon in the house now, but I'm drinking something else from the Buffalo Trace Distillery, which is wheated as well, which is blends. So
very nice. Great pairing. I'll actually let you. So this was the cigar that when I first met Sean, this was a cigar that he had given me at 2022 Rocky Mountain Cigar Fest. And I was trying to line up stuff and just never reached out as much as I wanted to. But I decided I wanted to save this. So I'll let you explain what I'm smoking.
You're smoking a classic, man. That's an OG right there, the Cohiba Black. It is like one of the best representations of Connecticut broadleaf. Which is a very, I think, somewhat underappreciated wrapper. It's actually the second most expensive commercially available wrapper leaf on the planet, behind Cameroon. But obviously, Connecticut River Valley is where that leaf is grown here in the USA and Connecticut. Under the hood, you have a good bit of Piloto Cabano, a little Esteli Nicaragua, and some San Andreas as well. So for you and I, it's more of a medium-bodied cigar, Maduro or not, just more of a medium-bodied smoke. Black coffee, bitter chocolate, really, really rich, just sort of in the pocket, classic Maduro.
No, I like, this is my favorite of the Cohibas. I like the richness. I like the chocolatiness, the body to it. The smoke has a little bit of a toothiness bite to it.
Very, very toothy. Yeah.
Very, very, very good cigar. So thank you so much for being so kind to give this over to me. So thank you very much, Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust, for sponsoring the What Are You Smoking Tonight segment of the show. So, so let's dive into it here. What is an ambassador?
I guess ambassadors, and you think about ambassador, it's someone that hopefully personifies the brand, whatever that brand is, and helps sort of bring it to life with the customers. My dog is coming up, wants to get on camera. But just sort of a spokesperson of sorts. I remember one of the stories on the blogs when I signed on was, Cohiba has a new face. So like the face of the brand, the voice of the brand, the forward-facing personality of the brand. So, and I embrace that role as well. But I think that sort of diminishes a little bit of what I actually do in my role. I mean, I'm a cigar maker. I was a cigar maker for, well over 10 years before I had the opportunity to do this. And as much as I love smoking cigars with you guys and being in stores, I love being in the factory just as much, which I don't get as much time to do that.
So how often are you in the factory?
I used to get down to, we have 3 factories, the largest of which, as far as Cohiba production, most of the production is done in Santiago, Dominican Republic. We also have the actual largest cigar factory in the industry is in Donley, Honduras, and we make the Royale there. That's the only Cohiba that we make there, and then we have a smaller factory in Nicaragua, Esteli, which we make the new Riviera is made there, the Cohiba Nicaragua, and Silencio, which is my signature blend. So between the three factories, I would get down to one of the factories, or a combination of the factories, 3 to 4 times a year, pre-COVID. But with COVID, things change, and I've only actually been down to our factories out of the country twice since COVID. So what we've done a number of times is we call them tobacco summits, where the team from the different factories will come up and we'll meet typically in Miami at an undisclosed location, and they bring raw tobacco, different blends, all kinds of stuff that we're working on, and we have a lot of us here who are based in the U.S. We all meet up there for a few days and just smoke ourselves silly, going through stuff, rating things, seeing what we're going to keep on the board, what we're going to abandon. And that's pretty cool. So that's one good thing that came as a result of COVID. But aside from that, I mean, we make a cigar, obviously, at Titan Browns in Miami, and I've been going there for years because I made cigars there for years. So I do get to get down there more frequently, but also have a rolling room here in my house where, I get to just tinker around and mess with stuff, if I really get an itch, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And for those of you that do not know the name of that factory or have never heard of it before, clearly you're probably not on a geeky level, but it's Willie Herrera's mother's factory.
Mother-in-law, but yes.
Mother-in-law. Sorry. Thanks for
the all good.
Factory, down there. So, well, I tell you what, with Cohiba being one of the most iconic names inside the cigar world, can you share with us just some insights into the brand's rich history and kind of what it represents to the cigar enthusiasts moving forward? Because the reason why I asked the question is, I think, and you would agree with me, that part of the reason why you were brought in was to give life to an aging brand. And that's not meant to be taken to a different, in a negative way, but it was a brand that kind of you did revitalize up from 2017. You bringing it back in. You brought the name out there a little bit. You, I think, are definitely attribution to bringing in maybe a more of a younger culture to the Cohiba brand versus, a lot of the Cohibas, the H. Upmans, the Padrones. Those have a tendency to be your older smoking ages and not necessarily your younger crowd. And I think you've done a great job in changing that. So kind of, if you could share with us some of the brand's history up until bringing you in, and then what you did to rebrand Cohiba.
Well, the Cohiba mark was introduced here in the U.S. A few decades ago, over 30 years ago. So it's certainly a very storied brand. still has a lot of the classic blends still, well, not a lot, a couple of classic blends still around. The Red Dot, which one of the blends that really popularized the Cameroon leaf, and to this day is adorned with the best Cameroon leaf available. Followed up by that with the black that you're smoking now. The blend has evolved a little bit over the years, just sort of keep pace with sort of the changing palettes as Maduros go. But it's still a classic smoke. And those brands have, those particular lines have proven to be exceedingly durable. Still to this day, with all the different front marks that we have under the Cohiba umbrella, our two biggest volume movers are still the Red Dot and the Black. So that tells you how durable those brands are. As far as with me coming on board, I don't know that it was a very storied brand and certainly a very seasoned and mature brand. But I don't know that it was ever a stodgy brand. I think it was more, it was viewed in a lot of places as more of a celebratory brand. Like, I
would agree.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like it was something that it's amazing to me that when I came on board, I mean, I remember clearly being in, I don't remember if I was in Pep Boys or somewhere getting an oil change, and the guys in there were talking, and one of the guys working there was talking about something that had coming up. He said, "Yeah, I got some Cohibas, man. We could, and I didn't say anything. I'm on my computer and whatever, but it was just kind of cool, and that's how a lot of people viewed the brand. But there were a lot of hidden gems in it, and honestly, that I wasn't keenly aware of until I came on board. And for whatever reason, there were these, the Diamante, the XV, the Lux, and a number of special release brands that sort of came and went over the years, just kind of showing, like this is the reach, this is what we can do. But it kind of just settled into a lot of the mainstays. And I see Bruce is smoking the Nicaragua, which is still one of my, go-to cigars within the portfolio, and one that didn't get a lot of voice before I came on board. My history in the cigar business was being a Nicaraguan-centered cigar maker, so I gravitated very early on to the Cohiba Nicaragua. And that's been sort of the biggest change, I guess, over the last few years, is we haven't put out any blend since I came on board that hasn't had a good representation of Nicaraguan tobacco in the blend. And I think that alone, I mean, I don't want to necessarily take credit for that, because I think had anybody done that under the Red Dot umbrella, that would have spoke to a different audience, right? I mean, because it really just expanded the profile. Cohiba had really historically been known for its Cameroon leaf and for the signature Piloto Cubano, which is in the filler in most of our tobacco. So adding in more than Nicaraguan tobacco and touching all the regions of Nicaragua, doing more stuff with Hamastron. Like we have Olancha San Agustin, which is one of our signature leaves, which is grown in Nicaragua near the Guatemalan border. But we're doing a whole lot with Hamastron Valley tobacco, which is more akin to Jalapa Valley tobacco, which is right across the way in Nicaragua. So it's just really adding a few of those elements, and I think that just started speaking to a different audience or more people. And with me being out there, just activating in the shops and at events, meeting at Rocky Mountain and places like that, just kind of talking about it. Like a lot of people weren't really aware of a lot of stuff that we had. So it was really just kind of bringing voice to it, man. That I've been really proud to be a part of. You know what I mean?
Now, if somebody, I'm sure they ask this, so I'm sure you've been asked this question. I'm just going to ask it. I asked this of Travis Pappenheim when I had him on. If somebody was to come up to you and go, "Hey, Sean, I've had a Cohiba special edition 2015 Cuban. Do you have anything in that world similar to this? And why is Cohiba US? What makes Cohiba US different than Cohiba Cuban? Just if you can, I don't know if you could speak to that or not.
I mean, I won't get into the nuts and bolts of the Red Dot versus the Cuban government on Cohiba. But as far as the profiles, I mean, they're distinctly different. and you're an experienced cigar smoker, and I could say that, and not necessarily say it's just a Cohiba thing. Just we have a really expansive profile if you think about it. I mean, if you look across the range of cigars, from starting from blue, which is sort of the entry offering that we have, it is a beautiful representation of the best, Honduran tobacco, from the Lance San Agustin to the Hamastron Valley. Has some Ometepe, Nicaragua, has the Piloto as well. So it's touching a lot of key parts of Central America. Again, heavy with Honduran tobacco. You go to the other end of the spectrum with the red dot, authentic Cameroon out of Central Africa, right? Like so that's another growing region. You go to the Nicaragua where Bruce is smoking. It represents several regions in Nicaragua for that tobacco. The one I'm smoking here, the Weller, has Nicaraguan, Brazilian Matafina, Honduran tobacco, wrappers, the binders, Connecticut broadleaf. You go to the Connecticut, Los Rios region of Ecuador is where the wrapper's grown. It also has Brazilian Matafina, San Andreas. So, I mean, there's so many different, nuances and profiles that the range of cigars offer. That alone makes it, a world of difference away from not just a Cuban Cohiba, but any Cubans for that matter. When you think about just the growing regions in Nicaragua alone, with Ometepe, Esteli, Condega, and Jalapa, 4 distinct growing regions which yield 4 distinct tobacco experiences. That alone supersedes the variety that you get in Cuba alone, right? So I'd say the difference in that it offers a really expansive experience, and we literally take you for a tour around the world as you work your way through the red dot portfolio. So it's a stark difference.
And you also get the body differences too, because you could go from mild, or I should say medium minus, mild plus, all the way up into a little bit more fuller body.
Yeah, we don't have anything that's super mild. But yeah, I mean, you go with the Connecticut or the red dot, that's going to be that mild medium range. Yeah. And if you want a nice spice bomb, give you a little tingle on the top of the head, go to the Royale. And we have everything in between.
Absolutely. I personally am not the biggest fan of Cubans, just because I like a stronger cigar. More so than not, I don't get that out of that. So the way I would explain it is, you're gonna smoke the Cohiba Cuban, okay, but you're gonna smoke the Cohiba US, expect an absolute variety of flavors and profiles, and being able to pick and choose your mood, for sure, because you guys do have a very expansive profile. And as you're kind of doing this blending, and you did for 10 years before you came, and you came in 17.
Yeah.
So what factors do you consider coming in and already having a profile to work with? How did you kind of have to tweak your own blending style to collaborate more or less with the Cohiba style? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, it does. And the beautiful thing is I didn't have to tweak much. I had to gain some experience because in my previous life, I didn't have the luck of being able to get good Cameroon and work with Cameroon. So I had no experience with Cameroon leaf. I had dabbled with broadleaf, but I'd never done anything with broadleaf. Didn't have any experience with political bottom. So it was really just kind of learning, those tobaccos and how they interact with the stuff I was used to, which fortunately I have a lot of it here. I have broadleaf here. I have Cameroon here. So I get to tinker with it and kind of see, how it interacts. So for me, it made me a better, cigar guy, just learning those tobaccos. So, it's not like they came and said, well, hey, we want you to learn how to do this. It was just whatever. That was the whole point. Like whatever idea or sort of philosophy I brought to the table, it just worked in with the incredible cigar makers and master blenders we have. Like, I never called myself a master blender. because we have some guys in our factories, Jonas Diaz, who really doesn't get his hands dirty as much anymore. He's the jefe of all of our manufacturing. Yuri Guillen, I learned so much from him. Augustine Garcia in Honduras, Abel Cruz. We have incredible tobacco guys who've been, I've been in this business 17 years, and these guys had been master blenders for that time period. So I learned a lot from those guys, man. So it was just kind of, my palate, my take. I ask questions. Hey, can we do? Let's create a cigar with Condega base. Let's really highlight some Condega. Let's, in the instance of the Riviera, let's do something box press. Let's box press Maduro. We've never done anything with San Andreas. So it's just like, it's crazy, man, because I get to just have these ideas and thoughts. We all do, and we just kind of, throw it together. And the most unfortunate thing is that we don't have enough runway and time to release everything that we want to release. That's why we've really been active with special releases over the last few years. If you notice, like, we don't put out a lot of full times. Like the Riviera we put out now, but we hadn't put out a full time in 3 years. And prior to that, we hadn't put out one for 2 or 3 years before that. It was the Connecticut, I think, was in 2019, and then the Riviera was in 2023. I'm sorry, the Royale's in 2023, and now the Riviera. But in the interim, we just really have fun putting out these special releases. I think the marketplace appreciates it. It doesn't put a whole lot of pressure on our retail partners because you only have so much shelf space. So we're giving them some things to really get behind and engage with their consumers around special release stuff, and it allows us to be creative and really swing for the fences on some things. And then every few years we put a full time out, but it has to make sense. We don't just put a cigar out every year just to put it out. As far as a full time has to make sense. How does it fit in our portfolio? How can we help our retail partners be successful with it? And is the consumer looking for it? Ultimately, like the cigar lovers, are they checking for it? So there's a lot of things that go into it, and I'm just thankful that we have incredible cigar minds that you guys don't get to see. You get to see me. I'm in the car, but there's an incredible race team, man, that you guys don't get to see. That's really special. So.
Yes, and there's a lot of great tobacco guys within the General's entire portfolio, Marshall? Even amongst all the other brands inside General's portfolio. I mean, General's been buying quite a bit of brands over the last couple of years. I don't think you would deny that. From Alec Bradley and so on and so forth.
I'm not mad at that, man. I mean, that's, to me, because with those brands, you don't just buy the brands. At least in our instance over the last few years, it's not just about buying the brands. It's you get the the sort of vibe that comes with that if you do it right, and especially in this instance, we have Alec Bradley. We actually have Alec and Bradley who are part of the team now.
Yeah.
And I've known those guys for years. Since it's great just kind of see them growing up and at the helm now, and they bring their own sort of creative spin to it. So I like it, man. And they're tobacco geeks, and I'm never upset to get around tobacco geeks. So
absolutely. And with all of these great, I mean, you've got like the USA Dream Team over at General Cigar right now. With the brands that are there. I mean, you've got between Boofy, Andrews, yourself, Alec and Bradley. So are we?
That was crazy. Like I legit rock with these dudes. Like we came up together. When Justin was with Lou Rodriguez Cigars, and I was with El Ramundo. We were on the Chipman circuit, so to speak. Like really out there, hardcore boutique guys just grunting it out. Like I've known Justin that long, and Booth, he came in with a different platform, coming in with Camacho years ago. But it was the same thing. He was learning this business. I mean, he's an incredible creative mind, incredible jewelry maker. But he was learning cigars then. So we would see each other doing all the herfs and the tweet ups and all those things, and would party to the wee hours of the night and smoke cigars and hang out and whatever when we were like young and full of energy in this business. So now we're kind of older and slower, But we all came up together, man. So and we never could have like mapped it out that hey, we're gonna crash here in Chattanooga and hang out all night or whatever and party and whatever, and then fast forward over 10 years later, we're all here with the largest hand-rolled premium cigar company in the world, with the platforms that we have. So it's amazing how things work, man. It's pretty cool.
No, and it's awesome. Are we ever going to be able to get to see like an Alec Bradley Cohiba release, Boofy release? Like, are we going to see some of these collaborations
as far as
product?
You probably more likely to see collaboration as far as with the personalities and our ideas. It does. I don't. Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball. And we've kind of talked about different things, but we have very distinct lanes.
Sure.
That I don't know that it makes sense to do a Cohiba Diesel collaboration or Cohiba one-on-one collaboration, but we will and we do influence each other's stuff, and we even talk about it and offer suggestions and whatever. And I can see at some point maybe there's something that a release comes out and our names as cigar makers are attached to it, but we probably want to keep the brand sort of authentic and separate to a degree. So but yeah, I mean, who knows, man? Who knows? But we have very distinct lanes that we're in. Like there's no confusing who we are, as far as Diesel and Cohiba. So it's interesting,
Now, when being that Cohiba's got both a very rich Cuban name and very rich U.S. name, what was one of the first things you did when you got into Cohiba on like an outreach to kind of bring that brand, the U.S. brand, or bring in that younger culture? What was some of the changes that you did messaging wise?
Listen, man, you give me more credit than I probably deserve. I don't know that I brought in a younger culture. I'm a grandfather. I'm 53 years old, so it wasn't like...
Yeah, but nobody was really a face of Cohiba before you.
And I think that's just it, really.
I think putting a face on it allows people to flock to the brand, versus not having a face.
I think that's it. Just a face, but more importantly, just a voice. Like, I don't think people really understood. We didn't talk about the tobacco story as much with Cohiba. Cohiba is a lifestyle brand. It was, one of the pricier of the cigars out there, and as I mentioned, kind of a celebratory cigar. And I literally heard a guy before, say like, yeah, I never thought I could buy a Cohiba. And it's like, well, sure you can. Like, I mean, but there's some people that's a certain amount they won't spend on the cigar, and I get that, right? But once you stand and you talk to them and say, okay, well, this is why this cigar is what it is. It's just two things that really make a cigar at its essence what it is: time and material, right? You have to have good material. You have to have good tobacco, right? You have to have the best material you can get, and hopefully you have the luxury of allowing time to do its thing, right? So that's the big thing, and that's something, and I can speak to that authentically because I didn't have that as a boutique guy. I didn't have the benefit of time. I was fortunate enough to get some good material here and there and put some. But when I had it, you had to roll it and you had to commercialize it because you needed the money, right? Not that we don't need the money, but we think a lot further. Like we're planning 3-5 years out. Things may change. We'll flexecute as necessary, but we're planning, years and years out. So okay, well, what is this going to look like? What do we need? Okay, let's get it. Let's put it away now, right? And you can't shortcut that, and it's hard to really quantify that in a way of dollars, right? So that's the benefit we have. And as you stand and you talk to people, and kind of talk about what's under the hood of these cigars and how long the tobacco's age or what makes our political vinyl special, what is tercio aged, how's that different from when you talk to people about it? Oh, they get it, and they're more intrigued and they want to try more. So that's it as far as speaking to a younger audience or a new audience in general. It's just that, speaking to them, getting out there, talking to people, and getting into the weeds on the tobacco, because it's cool if people see me at Sundance on skis and looking cool. That's great, but what's the cigar really talking about, right? And ultimately the cigar has to be good, and I'm able to sort of convey that because I'm out, in the marketplace, just talking to people and enjoying cigars with them and telling them, hey, this is what we got. This is what's special.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think what Cohiba lacked was that face, was that person to put a name on. Now, personally, when I think of Cohiba, and this is a lot of my friends, they instantly go, "Oh, Sean," like because you have become that figure and that face, and I think just having that person, that personality behind it, does make the brand revigorated, revitalized, feel alive. Well, because it's not just an ad or a marketing thing.
I feel very fortunate to be associated with the brand, especially in that regard. There's, I joked earlier, man, that before we came on air, there's a lot worse things I've done for a lot less money. So, if that's the moniker that I have, I'll take it and I'll wear it proudly.
So where do you see Cohiba in the future from now, 10 years from now? Do you see new lines? Do you see maintaining? And I ask that because the cigar industry is about to change again. We went from pre-COVID to boom. Cigar Aficionado just put out an article. Sales are back down. Are they right sizing? Are they going to plummet a bit? So based on your experience in the industry, where do you see a brand like Cohiba as it is not an inexpensive brand 10 years from now?
Yeah. So, I mean, the industry, we were on a sugar high, right? From COVID. And the things have settled, the volume sort of crested and settled a bit, but we still settled at a much higher point than we were pre-COVID, which that tells me that we've kept a lot of people in love with the habit, in love with the hobby, right? There are more people now enjoying the experience. And I think overall the experience is being elevated. And I don't know what it's like for you out in Colorado, but here in Atlanta, there hasn't been a shop that's opened up, to my recollection, in the last few years that hasn't provided the total experience. And different levels of it, right? Different levels of glitz and glam or whatever. But there are more cigar bars that have food and music and really creating more of a place for the casual cigar lovers to go. And also, they have walk-in humidors and they're serious about that. So, so you get the serious cigar people who go in as well. So I think just based on where we are, and from what I could see, it's become more of a mainstream lifestyle, and that comes with its, every rose has its thorn, right? Thorns. So it comes with some issues, and I get it for guys who are purists, right? But overall, I think it's sort of like what Cigar Aficionado magazine did for the industry, a couple of decades ago, like really sort of popularizing it to people who hadn't really peeked into the game, with sort of kind of moving more into a lifestyle sort of enjoyment. I think that's going to allow us to continue to attract, new people who are interested in learning more about cigars. Some of them are going to come in and be more hardcore and be really, have the the humidor at home, and they're going to collect cigars and buy boxes. Some are going to be more celebratory, more casual cigar enthusiasts, but all that works together because that's creating like sort of mini ambassadors throughout the landscape. So I think that, from what I can see, I think that trend is going to continue, and that's going to bode well for us. I mean, we're fortunate in that we are a seasoned, storied brand. For us, the big thing is just making sure that we, find interesting ways to innovate. Again, we're not going to put out a cigar just because it's time to put out a cigar. It has to make sense. So we're constantly looking at the portfolio, what's working, what's not working, where is the audience going as far as the cigar lovers, and also we're fortunate to have opportunities that not a lot of cigar brands have as far as collaborations. In instance, like with Weller, and then also with other luxury brands that again expand the audience for us, like the Cohiba experience we opened at the Ritz-Carlton in Baccara. We have a similar, well, not similar, but a sort of lifestyle sort of venue with the Preserve, this hunt club and equestrian club in Rhode Island that a lot of people don't know about. So we're always finding ways to sort of bring the cigar lifestyle over to other lifestyle activities and just kind of marry it to kind of just keep, connecting the dots and bringing more people in. So we're always looking out for those things. So I think, I know we'll be fine in 10 years. I mean, from a regulatory standpoint, as long as things are okay, we'll be fine as a brand. And I think we're going to continue to, there's still a lot of opportunity out there for us. I'm always amazed when I'm in a cigar store doing an event and somebody comes up, I never had a Cohiba. I'm thinking, wow. At first it would kind of trip me out, like, really? But now I'm like, great, this is an opportunity. As seasoned as this brand is, as well known as it is, there's still a lot of people out there that haven't had a Cohiba, and we just want to keep reaching.
Yeah, and that actually boggles me that when people say they haven't had a Cohiba. One of the first cigars I smoked in my youngness, in my early 20s, was a Cohiba, and it was exactly what you said. It was a celebratory cigar. I don't remember the celebration, but I remember the cigar. And quite frankly, we probably weren't celebrating much. The cigar was probably the show, for sure. So, but that just boggles me that a brand as lineaged as the name Cohiba, that people in the industry, unless they're ultra new, can still walk up to you and go, "I've never had one."
Yeah, but listen, I'm when I meet that person, I am encouraged. I'm like, okay, great. I got somebody to evangelize to. I love it. Thanks, Ronnie. Good seeing you, man. And Marshall's asking the leaves that we're smoking, so he missed the intro. So my man Ryan is burning a classic, the OG, the Cohiba Black, and I'm smoking this year's Weller release.
So Cohiba does have some very highly sought after, rare, and limited edition releases. Mm-hmm. What is Cohiba's approach to a rare limited versus a line cigar?
Rare limited, most notable Spectre, obviously. Spectre every year is just swing for the almost, I don't want to curse. It's just swing for the fences, man, with Spectre. And I gotta tell you, it's for a cigar in which we only literally make a few hundred boxes, it is a lot of work. I mean, just deciding on the tobacco that we're going to use, and in some instances sourcing the tobacco that we're going to use, because it's always going to be something that we won't have again. And we only have so much of that, right? So, but again, the company's been around a long time, and with these acquisitions, you also get their material, right? And just with with us, there's stuff that we have that, we've sort of forgotten about. And when you acquire, just like with the Brazilian Arapiraca tobacco, that was, something associated with the acquisition of Taranho years ago, So it's about having teams to really just hunt down all this special stuff, and let's make the best cigar we can make with the coolest material we have, and let's make the package as sexy as possible. So that one is like no holds barred. We don't worry about what it's going to cost to do it, right? Because it is a super special release. So we really just have fun. It's a lot of pressure putting it together, but once you decide which direction you're going to go, there's almost no pressure, right? It's just deciding on, between the different packaging options and whatever. So that's a lot of fun, right? I mean, as a cigar maker, it's a dream. Like there's no guardrails really. So that's the approach to it. Just take the bumpers off and just have fun and put out the most interesting cigar that we can in the dopest package that we can. So that's the approach to that. Versus a full time, you got to have all the P's, the product, the price, the packaging, the positioning, So there's a lot more thought that has to go into that. So it's
absolutely. And is it more discussed on a rare limited? Well, let me ask the question differently. Is Cohiba more in the market of releasing something rare than necessarily adding to the portfolio for a full time? Does that make sense?
It may seem like that because we've done so many special releases, but so the Weller cigar I'm smoking, like this is not something that was on our radar. We were fortunate enough to be approached by Sagrado Group, Buffalo Trace Distillery, to do a cigar. So it's like, how do you not do that, right?
Sure.
We can figure out the bandwidth to do that, right? And with Titan de Bronze, I mean, I have a long, rich history with that factory, and we wanted to do something that kind of really stretched us out as a big brand. Like, let's do something that's really, really, really super boutique. Doesn't get much more boutique than making 50,000 cigars a year in Miami, right? So those things are like special projects that kind of present themselves. And we're committed to doing regular full-time releases, but we're committed to doing ones that make sense, And I was on that hamster wheel with my brand every year. Well, I got a lot of something this year. And invariably, you're going to get to a point where you're going to cannibalize your own stuff, right?
Yeah.
How many Maduros can you put out before you start eating away at the Maduro you already have on the shelf or something like that? And you don't want to get into a position where, okay, we're putting a brand out, so now we need to sunset another brand, right? It has to make sense. So as long as we have an audience for the stuff that we're putting out and it makes sense, we're committed to it. But all of it is about timing, right? We're not more committed to doing special releases. We like to do special releases because we like to flex. I mean, let's be honest. Like we like to show that we can do this, right? So that's more of a sort of planting our flag in a certain place. So we're committed to that. But at the same time, we want cigars that 20 years from now, somebody's smoking a Riviera just like you're smoking a Black, which was released 20 years ago. So that's important.
So last question on Cohiba, and then we're going to move into some Sean questions. Cohiba's obviously had huge influence historically on cigars, even just the Cohiba US brand. How does Cohiba look at itself in shaping and helping shape the future of cigars, and what are they doing today to do that?
We're expanding the audience, and I keep saying audience because it's like you want people paying attention. So we like to think that we're speaking to people that maybe other brands just aren't in a position to speak to, right? We do a lot of lifestyle stuff, from Sundance Film Festivals to the partnerships with Ferrari and Micallef that we do in New York to the Rob Report stuff that we do, which as far as the car of the year. Next week I'll be in Jackson Hole, Wyoming at the Culinary Masters, which is a summit of some of the top chefs in the world who've come together for a terrific charity for restaurant workers. But we come, we get together, we enjoy some incredible cigars, and this sort of contingent of cigar lover, the chefs and the restaurant fabric, they go back and they share, the cigars and the experience, and we just try to do a lot more stuff than just being in the cigar shop preaching to the choir, right? I love doing that. We do a lot of that, but we try to do a lot of things to sort of get outside of just the normal group that we're in to help get other people loving cigars and loving the experience, and when they leave the events that we do, go back to their local shops and yeah, okay, they'll ask about a Cohiba, but man, when they're there, the other people are going to say, have you tried this? Have you tried this? Have you tried this? And hopefully we get them, man. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to expand the lifestyle of cigars, really make it a lifestyle, not just the hobby for cigar nerds like us.
How happy does that make you feel when you hear that Cohiba popped cherries for people for their first cigars?
I've had that. I mean, we're doing Whiskey X in Vegas. This was 2 years ago, and we have a lot of events like that where we're the only cigar brand there. We're doing a big event with Total Wine in a few weeks in Vegas. Whiskey on the Rocks at Red Rock. And we're the only cigar brand that's going to be there. So there are a lot of times it's my first cigar. It's my first cigar. Man, I love that. I love that, especially if it's a good experience, right? I love that because it may not be immediately like for me. I had my first cigar and immediately I jumped in going to cigar shops buying cigars. It may take a minute. It may they may have something come up later in that year, and this is a good time for me to get some cigars. But once they go to the cigar shops and they start talking to other people and talking to the tobacconists and whatever, you can't help but be interested in it. So yeah, so I love it when I'm a part of having someone try their first cigar, man. I love it.
So what did you say? You're going to be in Red Rocks?
Yeah. This is so Total Wine. They do a big event, which is the first year that I don't know how long they've been doing, but it's first year that I'm going to be there. It's called Whiskey on the Rocks, and it's a big whiskey expo that they do in Vegas.
Okay. In Vegas, when you said Red Rocks, there's a Red Rocks amphitheater here in Colorado.
Oh, okay.
And that's why I was like, I didn't know they did something like that there. Looks like I got to get tickets. No, that's awesome. And that's got to make you feel so overjoyed when you hear people say, oh, my very first cigar ever was a Cohiba. So, so I want to kind of move on to some Sean style questions. So who is Sean Williams when he's not lifestyle brand, Cohiba ambassador, blender, master blender for Cohiba?
Not a master blender. I don't accept that.
Blender.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm a husband, a father, a grandfather. As I mentioned, I'm a cheer dad. We were supposed to do this show 8 o'clock Eastern time, but you were gracious enough to push it back an hour because my daughter she goes to performing arts school here, and she's a vocalist, but she also cheers, and she had a game tonight, so I had to be there to support her, and yeah, man, watch her. I'm a cheer dad, so that's me. And I am the house dishwasher. For some reason, I am old school. I don't use dishwashers. So when I come home, there's dishes in the sink. It's one of the therapeutic things I do. I wash dishes. That may be like the extent of the housework I do. I'm not very domestic, but yeah, man, it's a trip just to not a trip, but it's very grounding, when I'm home, because I've been exceedingly blessed and fortunate in this business, man. I mean, I couldn't have charted my life or scripted my life to end up where I'm at, and I got these little things on the wall with me on the cover of different magazines and all this, whatever. Here, I'm just walking around in sweats washing dishes, man. So and running my daughter back and forth to school, or going to games and whatever. My mom lives here now. I moved up here 3 years ago. She lives 7 minutes from me. So there's some errand every day that involves when I'm in town with me and my mom. And she just likes to get out of her apartment. So if I just have to run to the post office or run to the market or whatever, she's in the car with me. So yes, it's pretty boring, man. It is pretty boring. Like I can't tell you like the hottest restaurant in Atlanta. I can tell you the hottest restaurant in other cities, but when I'm here, it is pretty vanilla, man.
Yeah, my in-laws live in Marietta, by the way.
Oh yeah, I'm in Smyrna, so that's Cobb County. Yep. So they're right up the road. Yeah.
So next time I'm in the area, I'm gonna give you a call. We're gonna get together and go for a cigar.
Yeah. Well, we're not gonna go for a cigar. You're gonna come here and smoke at the house because I don't.
That works too.
That's the one thing I do miss. Because when I started my brand, I started in the Atlanta market. I mean, I got in a bunch of shops here, and so I spent a lot of time. I rarely get to spend time in shops here, man, because I travel so much. When I'm home, I have to do family stuff. I have to, check in on things and do a lot of the running around and whatever. And I don't begrudge it. I mean, I enjoy it. I mean, I kind of recharge my battery, reset. So it's rare. Like I had an event Monday night at a shop here in Austell, and that was the first event I had in Atlanta probably in almost a year. I probably do 1 or 2 events a year in Atlanta. And aside from that, I rarely get out to cigar shops. So that's the one thing I do miss. And I've said I want to kind of focus on doing it more. If I have a stretch where I got, a full week at home or something like that, just pop into a shop here and there. But it's hard to do, man, because, I travel a lot. So I like to rest, and my days are pretty early when I'm home during school because my daughter gets up early. So, yeah, it's just hard, and that's the one thing I really miss.
No, absolutely. And I when I have been down to Marietta where my in-laws live, there was a few smaller shops that we went to, but I actually did take my father-in-law, who I'm trying to get into cigars. Cigars or pipes over cigarettes, and we did go to the Rocky Patel Bird Lounge.
That's 10 minutes from my house, yeah, and that's one place. Yeah.
Blew him away. He's like, oh my gosh, there's bars centered around cigars. I was like, yeah, it's called a cigar bar, Dubby.
Here in Atlanta, they're
everywhere.
I'm not exaggerating, there are probably 25 or 30 cigar bars that have walk-in humidor, full expansive selection of liquor and food. There's probably 25 or 30 of them in the Atlanta area. So there's no short.
Yeah. And when we went there, I told him as we were driving by, I'm like, oh, it looks busy. I think we're going to, he goes, there's no way there's a waiting line for a cigar bar. We had to wait like 25 minutes. He goes, you want to go somewhere else? I was like, really? 25 minutes? You wait longer than that for food. Like, we're going to go have a few drinks of the cigar. I want to go to the nicest place we could go.
And you can also get food there. The sliders
exactly.
are much,
exactly. So that kind of blew my father-in-law's mind when he's like, I just had no idea.
Yeah.
He's like, I always picture cigars in a lounge, smoky room with a bunch of dudes sitting around. I'm like, no, they're totally different. So, how long are you from Atlanta?
No, I'm from New Orleans, born and raised. Yeah, I'm a New Orleans boy. I've had several different stints here in Atlanta. Atlanta's always been sort of my second city. Lived in LA for a while too in high school, and so that's kind of my third city, I guess. But yeah, born and raised in Atlanta. My father was from this area, so as a kid, a toddler, we lived there for a little bit until my mom and dad split and moved back to New Orleans. And then I ended up moving back to Atlanta in the early 90s. I was working for the phone company and got a promotion to run a small business sales team, and I moved into Atlanta. So I was here for a few years up until the Olympics, then went back to New Orleans, never thinking I would come back to Atlanta. But my wife and I met years ago. We were both in pharmaceuticals, worked for the same company. I was an area manager in New Orleans. She was an area manager in Houston, and we met at a meeting in Dallas. And through career moves, she ended up having to come here, and we had a house in New Orleans and a house here for a while. But you can only do that so long. So it's been 20 years now since I've been here in the same neighborhood, as a matter of fact. So
wow,
yeah.
That's roots there.
Yeah. My youngest daughter was born here, so that really kind of solidified it as home.
So we had talked at the beginning, and you had just said that you won't call yourself a master blender. Now, I'm a firm believer that a master blender is never a title that somebody can take. It's a little narcissistic, but it's always a title that is given, like mentor. Mentor is never a title taken. It's always, and most oftentimes, mentor is a title accidentally falling into given because
most mentors don't realize they're a mentor until somebody tells them.
Exactly. Or, hey, dude, I view you as X, and you're like, holy shit, for real?
Yeah.
Wow.
Then it's pressure. Yeah.
Exactly. Now you're like, oh, the relationship changes. Do I charge you? Do I,
Right.
But
how do I not screw you up, right?
So obviously you've had some amazing people to learn under. You've had some amazing mentors to learn under. What is your definition of a mentor, and what would you tell somebody young that doesn't have, quote unquote, somebody in that life to look for when looking for?
That's a good question. What is a definition of a mentor? Someone that you can trust, and someone obviously whose opinions and ideals you value. You don't have to necessarily agree with all of them, but you do value them, right? But trust is important. The mentor, I sort of look at things like nobody has the exact answers, the roadmap. I kind of go back to when I was a manager, mostly in pharmaceuticals and medical sales. And you'd have, at least I'd have, 8 or 10 sales people working under me. And it wasn't that, I was a manager because I was, some great coach who can, get the best out of people and whatever. You hope you can do a little bit of that. But the big thing is I had the benefit of working with a bunch of different salespeople in a bunch of different territories with a bunch of different circumstances, and seeing what worked, what didn't work, taking best practices, getting their opinions and their thoughts, and I could share them individually with everybody as I'm moving around. So kind of like someone who traffic copped ideas and could share them. Like, this worked, this didn't work, maybe it worked for you. And that's kind of how I approach my role, and I was kind of reluctant, but I embraced that role now as a mentor to some of the young people coming up in me, because I've been in this business a long time. The big thing is I can tell people, hey, if you want my advice, the best I can do is I can tell you things that I did that worked, things that didn't work, what I learned, or what I took away from it, right? And that's it, because nobody's roadmap is going to be exactly the same. So it's just about sharing ideas, sharing experiences, and being authentic with it. Like even with my kids, I got all girls, and people, people who know me understand me. But if you didn't know me and you hear how I talk to my daughters, you think, this guy's crazy. No, man, no, the world's not going to give a shit about their sensibilities, their whatever, and I tell them things. If I'm telling, my daughter how to approach her training, I will tell her that based on experience I had. Like, I'm not just saying this because I don't think you're smart, or I think I know more than you. Well, I do know more than you, but I'm telling you this because this is what happened to me. This was the result of that, and I'm totally transparent with that, with the mistakes, with the successes, with the whatever. Like, you don't end up in life living a half century with any degree of success without having shit the bed several times along the way. So I talk about shitting the bed just like I talk about lifting the trophy, right? So, and that's how I approach people who look to me as a mentor.
Hopefully figuratively shitting. I'm just kidding.
No,
I'm just kidding.
I can say I haven't done that.
I'm just kidding. So then, as somebody that's how old's your grandchild?
7.
As somebody that's a boy or girl?
Boy.
Okay, so 3 daughters and now a grandson.
Mm-hmm.
what is the difference between a mentor and a father and then a grandfather?
Well, as a father or grandfather, you have the ability to correct, right? As a mentor, or you can suggest, you can offer advice, but you can't enact discipline, right? As a father or a grandfather, you can act discipline, you can correct behavior, like hands-on, like directly, as opposed to, these are the suggestions. Okay, I'm telling you this because I think this is the best thing for you. It's going to make more sense, blah, 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 blah. But eventually it's like, okay, I'm not asking, I'm not suggesting, you have to do this. So that's the big difference.
So
you can affect behavior as opposed to just suggesting behavior.
So would you give, I'm always the friend. I'm known as the friend you don't ask a question to unless you truly want the answer. My buddies come to me and they'll go, okay, I know I don't need sugar coating right now, so I'm going to come to you. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'm going to give it to you the way it is. Do you take that approach slightly toned down with your kids, or do you take that mentorship level and advice of, listen, this is how it is, and
no, with my family, they're gonna get the heat. They're gonna get the raw, uncut funk. yeah. Now, if you come to me, I was I was at the event I had the other night. And I'm amazed at how many people come to me saying, "Hey, I have my own cigar brand. Whatever." But this one instance in particular, guys starting a cigar brand, and he mentioned the blend, and when he said it, I knew the blend couldn't be what he said. I just knew it couldn't be what he said. But I don't know the guy, right? I don't know him to challenge him on that, and also that means I'm challenging the factory that he's working with. So I just we traded information. Now, if we go down the line and we talk and we actually develop a relationship and we can be authentic and really be more open, then I'll ask some questions and hopefully help him get to the place where he questions the blend he's talking about, and just give him information, help him get there. But in that instance, I want to tell a guy like, yo, man, you're being taken for a ride. That can't be the blend. But we don't have that relationship. We don't have that trust, right? So in that instance, I couldn't do anything. But if it's somebody that I knew and it was the truth, yo, that's not right. I don't know if you got the information wrong or if they're telling you the wrong information, but it's not right. But you have to have trust, and they have to value what you're going to say, your opinion and your experience. If you don't have that, then close your mouth, shake your hand, and wish them luck.
So as somebody that now has mentees, what is your approach to, first off, do you not actively, but do you actually seek out somebody to an extent to be like, hey, I'm gonna help you, I'm gonna work with you, or do you kind of let that be natural?
Yeah, I don't, and it's not because I'm cavalier or don't care or whatever. There's a number of reasons. Somebody wants your help, they're asking for your help. Other than that, you're meddling. And who am I to think that, hey, I got all the answers, you should listen to me? No. Those relationships, and again, I didn't even think of myself in a sense as being a mentor and being like I had people calling me like, oh, the OG or Unc or whatever. It's like I'm like, damn, I look up, I'm 53 years old, and like people are looking at me like, oh, this is my big bro, this is my uncle. I'm like, no, we're contemporaries, and we're really not, right? So that reality sets in, and it just kind of happens over time where people just ask you questions and you trade numbers and they'll call. But yeah, I don't. First off, you don't know who's serious. I've been in this business a long time. I've seen a lot of people come and go. I was just too stupid to quit, right? But I've seen a lot of people flame out. Like this business is not for the faint of heart, you know. And some people come into it thinking that, yeah, I'm going to do that. I've heard people, you know, and I love the wild-eyed exuberance. I want to do this. Great. I hope you do, right? So for me, it's important to see, okay, before I invest my time away from my family, because usually that's what it is. Somebody's calling me at night or whatever, or if they're in town, come to the house. We said, you know, if I want to do that, I want to make sure they're invested and they're serious. And that takes time to see that. So yeah, so no, I don't just go up to somebody and say, hey, here's my number, call me. And no, I mean, if someone wants advice from you, they'll ask. You know, other than that, mind your damn business.
No, absolutely. And to your point about people being serious. So I think I shared this. I have about 12, 13 mentors in my life, some business, some personal, some blended that overlap. And I actually had this one that I became very good friends with in my marketing days. He's a CEO of a company, and he kind of took me under his wing, and we just developed a relationship. And the next thing you know, I'm asking him questions, and I'm actually personally viewing him as somebody that I'm looking up to, and we're kind of establishing that. And so much time goes by, and we're talking, and he looks and he goes, dude, you ask me questions, I give you advice, and then you either disregard it or you go your own way. I tell you A and you go B. So here, and he gave me a bill, and he goes, this is what my time is worth. So he goes, we've been talking now for like nine months to a year. And he goes, you literally have just not taken anything I've said to heart at all. So if you want to continue this relationship this way, then only those people that pay me cannot listen to me. If I'm giving you free advice, I expect you to listen. And that kind of straightened me up. And I was like, you know what? I am sorry. I didn't realize I made you feel like as I was a waste. I started taking his advice at that. But it was an eye opener. It was a way for me to be like, dude, are you serious in actually going to want to learn from this person? Because if not, he just told me I'm wasting his time. I need to move on. And I think that's kind of what you were getting at, is how serious is that person? Are they just blowing smoke, or are they trying to build a business, a mentorship relationship?
Yeah. And even with that, like if someone asks for advice, I always give it with a caveat. You know, I mean, especially now, if a cigar person's trying to launch a cigar line now, it's vastly different from when I launched my brand 17 years ago. There was no social media. I mean, MySpace was around a bit, but it, you know, by the time I set up a MySpace page, it was dying, and then Facebook was coming on board, right? And we've had a lot of things come and go. Remember Vine, Periscope, Keek. There were a lot of different, you know. So, it was sort of figuring out that, and now, I mean, there are a lot of people now. It's like, you know, you see a lot of activity on social media, and they're more apt to sell direct to consumer, which was an absolute no-no when I started. So that whole sales mechanism wasn't available to us back then. So it's very different. So, you know, I'll give someone's advice, but it's like, you know what, it's a different landscape now. So that might not be as effective, you know, or whatever. So it all comes with a caveat. It's just this is my experience. This is what I think. But, you know, you're going to roll the dice how you want to roll the dice, you know.
So as you're coming up into the cigar industry, you're learning underneath people. How much of that time was listening and observing and questions versus doing and putting to practice in the beginning?
Most of it was observing, because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to roll cigars, or, I mean, I remember when I first went to the Placencia factory in January 2006. I thought I knew cigars. I was there 10 minutes and I realized I didn't know shit. I didn't know nothing about tobacco. I thought I did. So yeah, it's all about asking questions and looking, listening. And it would be years later that I would actually start. Okay, it wasn't it wasn't very much longer that I was more instructive as far as, okay, well, let's do a cigar and let's try this tobacco. That's kind of how it was. Then it'd be years before I get to the point where it's okay, just give me all the shit and I'll tinker with it myself. So most of it was listening, observing, just soaking up information. And I think that's still the case for me. I mean, that's one of the reasons I miss going to the factory as frequently as I used to, because I go there and I learn, and I'm missing that a little bit because it's just not the same. Even when we have our summits and they bring everything up, it's just not quite the same as being in you stumble over stuff. You see different tobacco, you see different. Oh, okay, we're using this now, or like it's just you learn just by being there. It's organic. The transfer of information. So I still listen and observe a whole lot more than I actually put my hands in stuff.
What's one thing that you absolutely didn't expect when you came into cigars, about cigars? I guess I should say, let me ask it this way. What's a myth what's something in cigars that you now know is a myth that you thought was the reality of the cigar industry?
The reality of the cigar industry, and this is not a pejorative, this is not a cast aspersions, it's not a bad thing. It is a lot more blue collar than I thought. Like when I came in, I thought it was, I started the Atlanta Cigar Society, and the tagline was "Elevate Your Lifestyle." It's a boss thing. No, man, this is like everybody everyday thing, and I love that. I remember growing up uptown New Orleans, we'd have, neighborhood bars. We had this place on the corner from my house called Old Shandy. It was this Irish bar. And then we had the Turning Point Lounge, which is a couple of blocks the other way. And people would get off work and they'd stop at these local watering holes, Jill's Drop, a place like that. And they'd have a drink, have a beer, whatever, and then go home. Well, that's a cigar shop now. Whether you're, Tim, buddy of mine who works at Advanced Auto Parts, or you're Jeff, who's a hedge fund manager. They show up at the shop, light up a cigar, pour what they're gonna, and it's like the connectivity in cigars is unlike any other thing really in society, and it's for all walks of life, all economic, levels, all colors, all it's one of the most inclusive things ever, and it's not a rich man's game. And that's the thing that I guess surprised me once I really started going to shops years and years ago, that I really, really loved. I remember a buddy of mine, we're still good friends to this day. He would come from Waffle House. He had one of his Waffle House uniform. Had another guy would ride his bike from Jason's Deli, and he'd come in, and then we're there with, Major Finch, who was a major on the police force, and so it was just like it was just this thing that just connected people, and that was the biggest surprise, a pleasant one, but that was the biggest surprise.
It's an equalizer. Cigars are an equalizer. I can smoke the same $10 cigars, the doctor, the lawyer, the garbage man, the plumber, the electrician, whatever. And we're all sitting together, and it's not about the status; it's about the cigar.
Absolutely,
the experience.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, in your opinion, what is a personality trait? If someone was to come to you and say, "What's something personality-wise I need to be successful in the cigar industry?" What would you tell them?
I think you have to like people. I would think. I think that's important. Certainly for me, the biggest I guess the biggest thing that's been helpful to me for my time, success, whatever level of success you want to attribute to me in the cigar business, has been relationships. Because the relationships get you through all of the ups and downs. If you don't have tobacco, you have to have a relationship to get certain tobacco, right? Mm-hmm. If you're in a really, really tough spot and you're close to just waving the white flag. You have to have a relationship with somebody that's going to encourage you, right? You have to have relationships with people that's going to tell you about something new or whatever. You have to have relationships to make the right alliances for distribution and connect with the right salespeople. If you're working with broker, it's all about relationships. That connects everything else. So I think inherently, if you want to be successful in this business, you have to give a damn about people, and
that's their experience, because they're going to you with a $10 bill, a $20 bill, and they're looking for an hour and a half, 2 hours, hour of time. It's them. And that bad cigar, if you don't care about the consumer, can ruin that time. Yeah.
You have to care that they're going to have a good experience. These are hand rolled products. I feel confident that we make really, really good cigars, but every now and then you're going to have one that's plugged or wasn't properly humidified. It's going to unwrap something, and you have to care about the experience. Here, take that. You don't have to finish that. If you want to finish it, that's fine. But here's another cigar. Like little things like that, So someone has to have that if they're going to try to be successful in this business. But you also have to have patience. Not patience just to kind of sit and wait, but patience to just be patient through the ups and downs. That patience grows into perseverance at some point.
So what, and I think I might know the answer to this. What's one lesson, if you left cigars tomorrow, what's one life lesson that the cigar industry has taught you that you would take to whatever industry you went to next?
Oh man, I'm the perseverance piece.
That's what I thought you were about to say. Yeah. You especially having been a small brand, like there's nothing in business that would scare me now. Like I've been from a financial standpoint, just trying to figure out, okay, how am I gonna get these cigars out of production, or how am I going to travel here? You become really, really resourceful in this business, and my time in this business there's nothing in business that would scare me. Nothing. Why is perseverance a lesson that business owners, as somebody that consults business owners for a living in the software industry, I find that perseverance often is not the easiest trait for people because they just want it now. They just don't understand. I have to wait. Why is perseverance such an important quality that you would take to somewhere else? Why is that a necessity?
Listen, that's the great uncommon denominator. That's the difference maker. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, I've seen a lot of people come and go in this business. I've seen a lot of people come and go in a lot of businesses. The big thing for any entrepreneur, but uniquely so with business people in the cigar space, but something that sets entrepreneurs apart from everybody else is their ability to muscle through the pain. A lot of people have ideas. A lot of people have great ideas. A lot of people are incredible chefs. They can cook. They come up with great ideas, or they open business. But sometimes you just outlast people. I don't know who I was watching. I saw something. I don't know if it's a TED talk or I saw one of the tech companies. I don't remember which tech company, but one of these tech executives, he said he was somewhere with someone, and this is going back, obviously he was recounting something from a few years ago. Someone from Apple. He says, I was just over at Microsoft, and their Zoom, man, I love it so much more than I guess it would have been the iPod at the time, blah blah blah, and the guy and he said it, I don't know if he was malicious when he said it, but he's just kind of sharing his experience with Zoom versus the music platform they had at the time, and whoever the executive was or the person with Apple was like, oh yeah, okay, cool. And he said it kind of threw him off because the guy didn't try to defend it or whatever. And he understands it now. I wish I knew who this guy was, having been in the business. He says a lot of times it's not, you're not putting out something to make that one product better than your competitor. You're putting out something that's going to last longer, and a lot of times that's it. And you think about all the social media platforms that have come and go. It's not like there's a few that does something different than others are doing, but a lot of times it's about lasting. Like if you can give yourself a long enough runway, if you can just grind through, a lot of times it's not necessarily because you were brilliant or smarter than anybody or whatever. A lot of times it's because you had the fortitude and the perseverance to stick it out when things got tough. And some people are like, man, let's forget this. I'm shutting this down. I'm just going to get a regular job. And that's cool. That's what separates people, So perseverance in entrepreneurship is absolutely critical, and even more so in the cigar business.
Absolutely. And with perseverance, I would also say it's to add to that, because I agree with you 100%. It's not always about who has the best product. It's oftentimes who can outlast or outmarket. Nobody recognizes, if you were to go to somebody that's 15 or 16 and say, what's a Zune? They'd look at you and go, I have no idea. Yeah. But it's also with perseverance.
You have to be consistent.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you have to know also when to ask for help. One of the life lessons and when you read about Steve Jobs, that he had to learn, because Steve Jobs was a huge image of himself, a huge image to himself, meaning he was larger than life in his own mind, and it was hard for him to think of asking for help. But he actually went to Microsoft, and Microsoft gave Apple a huge loan in the 90s that kept Apple alive. And now you have Apple destroying Microsoft's products, the Zune and everything else. So it's that perseverance, it's knowing when to ask for help, and that fortitude and that mindset of always looking forward. Most of the people in my life will tell me, if you don't have 30, 90, 6 month, 12 month, 3 year, 5 year, 10-year goals, life is hard to map out, because you're just going through hoping that you're throwing darts at the right dartboard. So how much of that do you believe is true as far as the goal setting in your own, not just personal life, but professional?
I think that's important. Absolutely. And certainly as a brand, we think that way. And that sort of keeps me dialed in that direction as well. But, I think about ideally, I'm 53. So, what's my runway look like? How long do I do what I do in this capacity at this rate, right? So I think about that a lot, and I have in my mind sort of some ideas about that. But you have to be thinking ahead, and you have to be thinking ahead, not an absolutism. You want some contingencies because things are going to come up. But yeah, it's very important. It's very important. You can't just you roll with the punches as far as stuff that comes at you, but you can't just sit back and wait to see what life slaps you in the face with. You have to be a little bit more intentional. But at the same time, you gotta be willing to be nimble at times. So it's a balance.
So how much you, to me, in talking with you, and how you've talked about how you're very real with your family, you don't sugarcoat, how much of your day is set up for success? Meaning, do you start your morning? You always hear the super wealthy, successful people like, I start my morning with X, and I read or I work out, I do something to get my mind right. What does Sean do to set his day up for success?
Well, it sort of depends on where I'm at that day, right? but typically if I'm home, I mean, I'll have a sort of a checklist of different things that I have to do as it relates to product stuff. I'll have, for me, it's before I go to bed at night, I always look at my calendar the next day to kind of see what I have, and then I'll as far as calls or certain business sort of check items I need to do as it relates to the brand, and then I have to sort of figure out, okay, the personal stuff when I'm home, figuring that out. So it's about scheduling more than anything, right? To sort of manage my time. And I get up in the morning, and my peace of mind. I like to get a workout in the morning. Most mornings when I'm home. That's kind of my therapy. I usually don't have a cigar until around lunchtime or so, realistically. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's just it's I don't have to really think a lot about, okay, well, how am I going to plan my day? I mean, my calendar is set into next year, right? So for me, it's just about managing, okay, these are things, how do I prepare for this? Is there anything I need to be read in on before this call, or what do I have to follow up on as far as stuff that's going on for events and stuff like that. So it's a lot of just sort of traffic copy, just my calendar, to be honest. But from a personal standpoint, it's really just, I like my quiet time, and I probably get more quiet time at night than I get in the morning, because it's just sort of the household stuff. And the only sort of silo time I have in the morning is whatever workout I'm doing in the morning. I work out here at home, so that helps. But usually I do a lot more like at night, reflecting. Like usually once the house is settled, I'm having a cigar at night. Again, looking at my calendar, what I have to check out tomorrow. Okay, I have this thing coming up a few weeks out. Some things require a lot more moving parts. So I just kind of just glance at the landscape going forward, and then I'll have a cigar, share everything down, pick up my phone and get online, and I play chess a lot. And that's kind of like my thing. Like, don't talk to me. It's quiet, and that usually just is probably the last thing I do before I go to sleep. So it's just kind of my, that's not etched in stone, because it changes. When I'm on the road, all bets are off, right?
Sure.
That's more about sleeping. Like, I put the black clothes and just make sure I get some rest when I'm on the road, and try to adjust to the time zone. So just try to manage it, man. Yeah.
So you had mentioned time management. Time management is one of those things that any business professional I've ever spoken to has always told me that whenever they speak to somebody and they say they're having a hard time doing X, the first thing they ask them is, how is your time management? Why is time management important in a professional world, corporate life like yours, and if you own your own business?
Oh, it's critical. I mean, you got, I mean, that's the most valuable commodity you have.
Let me position it a little differently. There's I'm busy for the sake of being busy, and then there's I'm busy doing things that are actually fruitful. And I think there's a difference in time management understanding. So what is, in your opinion, like the time management of, I need to actually do stuff to accomplish, versus, hey, damn, dude, I feel like I've been busy all day, but I've got nothing done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that honestly, that's thankfully that's rare for me, because my life is very calendar driven. Like, everything's on my calendar, and I have Gary, who's a national events coordinator, and a couple of people. They have full access to my calendar, so they'll see everything from when I have to get my car serviced, to when I have a dentist appointment, or when I got to take my mom to a doctor's appointment. Like, everything's on my calendar. If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist. Like, I will forget it. So for me, if we talk, if I make a commitment to somebody, I put it on my calendar. Because you have to control your time. You have to find some time in your calendar for downtime. And there are those rare days where, like, man, my calendar is pretty free today, so I just chill. You know, like, and I don't feel bad about those chill days, you know, because you need those. And for me, it's like my time is valuable. And it's kind of like with your mentor. Like he said, he gave you a bill at some point. That's one thing you can't get back, man. You know, you can lose money and get money. You can wreck a car, get a new car. You can get another house. You can get whatever. Once you burn your time, you never get it back. You know, so that's the most valuable commodity I have, and I try to take care with it. You know.
So how do you shape your work-life balance? And I ask the question because I think a lot of people look at you and go, dude, you travel what seems like 80% of the year. How do you manage your family time to work balance?
It helps to have a very understanding family, right? But no, I mean, you know, when I'm here, I'm present. Like I'm, you know, whether it's going to Costco with the wife, whether it's going to the game and watch my daughter cheer, or if she has a performance. I mean, like I'm all in. That's, you know, so you know, you know, I don't hear the term as much anymore, but in the 80s, you know, the term quality time, you know, quality time. And that sounds pretty trite and pretty played, but there is, you know, there's truth to that, right? Like, you know, and sometimes it's not anything. It's just kind of chilling out. Hey, let's watch a movie together. So we all sit down and watch a movie. You know, so it's just being present. You know, being present. And thankfully, with technology now, man, it's you know, you can always be in touch. FaceTime is great. Like you always read in. How was your day? What did you do today? And just kind of, you know, talk about their experiences, what's going on. You know, just be invested in whatever's important to them, whether you're physically here or you're not here. You know, that's that. You know, technology makes it a lot easier. And I sort of joke. I was like, you know, if I've had a heavy stretch of traveling, I was like, well, you know, it's not like I'm going off to Iraq for a year. You know, you know what I mean? Like think about that, or think about years ago when you didn't have all this technology and you just looked for a letter from somebody, right? You know, so. You know, thankfully with technology, we can stay in touch and we can stay connected. But when I'm home, I'm present. I'm like people, hey, you know, come on. I'm not going to promise you that I'm going to go out and hang out with you at a cigar shop or cigar bar here, because I travel so much that when I'm here, that time has to be spent with the family. Just plain and simple.
So you are first and foremost much more on the family-driven side than the career side. Career could be replaced. Are you under? Would you subscribe to that train of thought?
Yeah. I mean, family first. But I'm pretty driven, career wise, and again, thankfully my family understands that, but they don't feel slighted. I mean, you know, it's at least I don't think so, right? Yeah, no, I mean, I don't see why you can't have both. I mean, you know,
it sounds like you do it right. When you're home, you're home.
Listen, man, listen. You know, I'm not going to say I can write a book on how it should be done. And hopefully, you know, people listen, don't have those illusions. I'm just trying to figure it out. Like I'm doing the best I can, right? And but I mean, just yeah. I don't think. I mean, even with I coached my daughter in basketball for about 4 years, even with the clip that I traveled, right? And there was only one game that I missed, and a couple practices here and there. But for the most part, I mean, 4 years. I mean, you know, I was able to do that. So, you know, as long as I can sort of see far enough out, I can plan around certain things. Some things are absolute, and when they are, my family knows. Okay, well, you know, this is. That's something I can't do, but I banked a lot of credit for the things I have done. So when there's occasion that I can't do something, you know, I don't get any go.
So I have a daughter. My daughter is 2 years old.
Oh wow!
I'll show you a picture. So this is the love of my life, next to my wife.
Oh my God, adorable! Wow, wow.
Don't ask me how.
Wow.
I have no idea at all.
There was another
blessed.
person involved in the equation. So,
She definitely contributed more than I did.
Is that your only kid?
For right now, yes.
Okay.
Yep. I have a 2-year-old daughter.
Beautiful.
What's a piece of advice that you would give me on how you have helped shape your daughters? Because you have now a grandson, that's a little different. What's something that you would say to help somebody like me getting into fatherhood with a daughter?
I am not a child psychologist. I'm not a family.
Of course.
I mean, just be as present as you can. But with any relationship, and even more importantly with a daughter, man, communication. Like talk. Ask questions. Allow them to ask questions, and be candid as much as you can. Like you can't have certain conversations with a toddler, obviously. But as they get older, you'll know because the questions will change, and as the questions change, and as you have life experiences that relate to that specific question, you got to be candid. And I think it's, for me at least, I haven't read this in a book. I don't know, but for me, it's equally, if not more importantly, to be candid about the mistakes, so that they know you're going to make mistakes, and as long as it doesn't kill you, you will learn from it, and you can grow from it, and you can still achieve success, whatever you determine success to be. Success for different people are different things, and I tell that to my kids all the time. You decide what success is in your life. You may not want a big house, you may not want a lot, whatever. That's fine, as long as you're happy and you're fulfilled. That's the big thing. Just be fulfilled in your life. And you determine what that level is. But for me, it's just like, I don't sugarcoat the mistakes, man. From mistakes I made in school, sports, relationships. That comes with maturity. As they mature, you have different levels of conversation. But I just sort of speak from experience, and just be open. So jury's still out. We'll see how this works out. The jury's still out, though. So
you're leading right into where I wanted to go next. Why is it important to share? First off, this is 2-part. Why is it important to have failures in life, and why is it important to share those failures, especially with your kids?
Good night, Marshall.
Good night, Marshall.
It's important because you don't want kids to get down.
Thank you, Jerry.
People are going to fail. And it's like, okay, well, there's no successful person on the planet who hasn't failed. And the more successful they are, probably the more failures that they've experienced, right? It's not about the failure. It's like, what did you learn from that? And how do you take that into the next battle? That's what it's about. So you have to show, especially with little girls, you'll see, man. A lot of times girls look at their dads as Superman, you sort of see where I'm at now, but you don't know all the mistakes and the landmines I stepped on over 50 years, and I think it's important that they know that, because failure is a part of life. Failure is not, it shouldn't be terminal. You don't fail and just stop. You're gonna fail, and it should be a lesson, and it should help you. So it's important to be transparent about the failures, and how did you overcome it?
So do you let your daughters fail from the standpoint of not succeed with what they're wanting to do? And do
that question is so prescient, because that's a conversation that I've been having with myself. Because a lot of times, and I only got one daughter at home now. My oldest daughter is 32. My middle daughter is almost 24. So I worry sometimes that not just me, but just overall, the Gen Xers who have kids now, I don't know that we're letting them fail enough. I agree. Like certain things, like I don't know if it's last week or week before. Get my daughter. We're almost at school, and she realized that she left her cheer bag at home with her uniform, shoes, and all that stuff, right? And I'm thinking, okay, if you weren't rushing, if you weren't you get up at a certain time. I do a checklist before I go to sleep. I do a checklist in the morning, whatever. And there's always something. And there's been a couple of times where I've had to bring something to school for. And I'm like, you have this safety valve that we didn't have. I caught the bus to school, right? And I played football, basketball. I was on the track team, and so there was always something, that I had to have. And if I got to school, or I got halfway to school and realized I left something home, I was screwed. I wouldn't have time to get off the bus and go back home or whatever. My mom could bring, what I'm saying? So you learn that lesson one time, that hard lesson one time, and you correct it going forward. So I've really been struggling with like at some point, I need to let she needs to take this L. She needs to take this L. So I worry about that. But to your point, I think you need to let them fail sometimes. Okay, I know she's gonna hit the wall, but it's your kid, so you try. That's tough. But I've been struggling with that. In particular, this school year, I've been, because she's a sophomore now. There's a lot going on, and we're running around with a net catching stuff and whatever. I'm like, you know what? You just need to take an L at some point, and I'm at that point. So yeah, I think you do need to let them fail. I just been a punk about it, and haven't had the heart to let the wheels fall off. But yes, yeah.
No, absolutely. I it's hard not to. And I was somebody had sent me a clip, because I was talking about this exact same thing with my buddy, who's also a young dad, 2 girls. Been my buddy since I was like 7 years old. And he sent me this clip of the show from the 90s, and it was like a flashback of this dad on the show in the 90s as a kid in the 70s, playing by the electrical socket. And the mom was like, "Oh no, don't!" And you see the dad go, "Nope, let him do it." He's
I don't know about that.
But it's that same, today. I agree with you. Kids, when I was growing up, and I'm only 38, this is not like it was that long ago. We didn't have we had, but we didn't wear the knee pad. It was just a different thing. It was, that 10-foot pole, I'm going to go climb it and slide down and hope I stay on. It's now I think everybody's so concerned with people scraping their knee, metaphorically.
Yeah.
And they're afraid. Yeah. And I think that's taught the generation below me to not take those risks and take those chances.
Yeah. I mean, we've created a bubble, and I worry about that. Because life is going to scrape you up. So, I worry about that. Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you. So, here we're going to move into the lightning round. Got a series of lightning round questions, and we'll end the show. So, Sean, what is your favorite cut of a cigar? I should say cut to use a cigar. Okay, straight cut.
Yeah.
What is your favorite wrapper? Now you can give me musician and cigar wrapper, or just cigar wrapper, up to you. Most people give me both. It's really up to you. I forgot who started that when I asked them that time. They said Eminem.
I don't know that I have a favorite cigar wrapper. That's a good question. I don't know that I have a favorite cigar wrapper. I don't have a favorite. That's like asking me who's my favorite kid. It just depends.
Okay.
And my favorite rapper, it's tough. It's tough. I think all time, man, it's tough. I don't know if I have one. I mean, I think from just a durability standpoint and just a body of work standpoint, it's hard not to be Jay-Z. I mean,
it's very true.
I mean, he dropped his first song, Jay and Jazzo, Hawaiian Sophie. That was like 88, 89, right? You know, kind of had some dark years and then came back in the mid 90s, and he's been relevant ever since. So I mean, I probably have to give the nod to Jay as the greatest, you know, the GOAT. You know,
he was also, I think, a billionaire before Dre was when he took over Def Records.
Yes. He you know, with Tidal and Live Nation. Yeah. So it has to be Jay. Yeah.
If there was a cigar if there was a cigar tobacco that you could love, that you would like to work with but haven't, what would it be?
I wish I could answer that question, because that gives me something to reach for. I don't know what tobacco I haven't worked with at this point. I mean,
well, have you ever tried any of the African tobaccos or Middle Eastern, Irish?
I'm not familiar with Middle Eastern tobacco necessarily. As far as African tobacco, obviously Cameroon we have, but we actually had this tobacco that we were toying with. We had some of it. We were looking to do a project with it from Uganda. It was rapidly. It was amazing. But they couldn't produce enough of it, and I'm not sure they're even producing it anymore. So that may be a unicorn that's out there. But yeah, man. I mean, at this point, I know what I worked with early on in my career, and I haven't had a chance to work with in over a decade. And it's not anything that's super hard to get, but I just haven't had occasion to. But Peruvian tobacco,
okay.
I would like to maybe revisit that. And work it into, because we don't have that anywhere in our current portfolio, and that's something I had some success with early on. So, you know, if I can go back to something and incorporate it into my current life as a cigar maker, it would probably be Peruvian tobacco.
And I forgot, you guys actually use Marifel Cameroon, if I'm correct, not African seed Cameroon, which is a complete difference. African seed Cameroon is not grown in Africa.
That's a misnomer. So the genesis of Cameroon leaf is actually Sumatran seeds. Yeah, that's the genesis of Cameroon tobacco. So when people take, you know, I guess what is now the DNA of Cameroon leaf and grow it somewhere else, you're generations removed from this original strand, which is actually Sumatra.
Well, thank you for clarifying. I did not know that it was just a Sumatran grown in Cameroon, but it adds like an unbelievable sweetness to it.
That's how I got started. Yeah.
So, what is your favorite size cigar?
Toro.
Are you a 660?
Really, I am not a 660. I'm not a big ring gauge guy. I mean, we make 660, so I will smoke ours just for the experience. But yeah, I'm not a big ring gauge guy. I mean, once you get above 54, 56, kind of lose me.
Yeah, I'm literally the same way. I'm 50, 54 is my biggest. I'm a big Lancero person, Panatella, Corona.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite pairing?
Favorite pairing as far as a spirit with a cigar?
So let me ask it two parts. What is your favorite pairing when blending? And what is your favorite pairing when enjoying?
when blending, it's water and coffee.
Okay.
That's it. And I'm not gonna say 90% of the time. Actually, most of the time I'm smoking a cigar, I'm probably drinking tea with it, because during the day I'm not drinking liquor. But when I'm drinking a spirit, it's going to be bourbon. And I don't have anything against other whiskeys such as Scotch or whatever. But the landscape for me is just a lot easier to navigate in bourbon, with it being 50% mash bill, corn. It's going to be a little bit sweeter, so I just like that profile better with cigars. So bourbon.
What is, if you were only allowed to smoke one Cohiba for the rest of your life, what would you choose?
Wow.
Any of them, new, active, retired, it doesn't matter.
And this I may be influenced by sort of what's more present, but the Riviera to me, I mean, it has a lot going on with that cigar, man. But my favorite Nicaraguan tobaccos in there, Berger, Jalapa, Matafina, San Andreas wrapper. The three sizes smoke so different, from the Robusto to the Toro, which is they're all box pressed, and the Toro is a 52 by 6.5, but it's box pressed down, so it smokes a little smoother. Then we have the box pressed Perfecto, which is actually a 60 gauge, but it's box pressed down, double Perfecto. So different experiences there. I mean, if you put a gun to my head, that might be it. But man, that's tough though. That's tough. That's tough. I'd probably just kill myself if I had to smoke one cigar forever. I don't know.
Are you more of a shape tipped or
no? I'm a Parejo guy, man. I like a nice classic Toro, and I like the box press as well. But I am not a big Figurado guy, admittedly.
All right. Well, Sean, this has been a great interview. Thank you so much for going down the rabbit hole of my questions.
Yeah, man, this is the back half of it was we rarely talked about cigars, which is actually pretty refreshing. So yeah, man, cool.
I hope I gave you something a little different.
Yeah.
That was I wanted to make sure we did touch on Cohiba, because it is such a legendary, expansive, and extensive name. And I wanted to give the brand the time on the show, but I also wanted to make sure I dove into you and what makes you tick as a person. And I really appreciate you being open and candid with me and your responses. And I'm glad I was able to give you something a little bit more refreshing. I told you at the beginning, this is probably not going to be a stylish show that you've been on before.
And it wasn't, but it was a lot of fun, man. Thanks for having me. Absolutely.
Oh, well, you are very welcome. Thank you so much for coming on. And I would love to have this be an extensive relationship between Cohiba and the show. You're more than welcome. You'll always have a home here at the Rocky Mountain Cigar Show. So I tell you what, I'm getting a lot of the great shows tonight. So very, very, and Bruce has stayed up past his bedtime.
Hey, Bruce,
but again, thank you so much for I know you're traveling, so I'm going to let you close the show. Where are you at next week? Where can people find you, and why choose Cohiba?
Well, tomorrow I'm going to Omaha, Nebraska. I'll be at Safari Cigars, and if you haven't been there, especially for a Cohiba event, if you're anywhere in the area, it's definitely worth a trip. Next week, I'll be with one of our media partners, Rob Report Magazine, out in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, for this incredible event with some of the top chefs in the world for a wonderful charity, supporting those in the restaurant industry. And the week after that, I don't remember where I'm at. I'd have to look at my calendar, but not hard to find. I usually post when I'm traveling, and so just kind of find me online, and you'll see the map as to where what city I'm going to be landing in, and hopefully we get a chance to connect. So thanks for having me, man, and I'm sure I'll see you on the road.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much. And for everybody watching the show, Thank you so much for tuning in on yet another live episode here at the Smoking Studios at the Rocky Mountain Cigar Show. And until we see you all again, smoke what you like, smoke as often as you can. Have a great rest of your week. Bye, everyone.